of the setbacks in service delivery is because of corruption. And corruption is really a song that is being sung in Uganda. Everyone accuses the other of being corrupt. Of recent, in the saga that happened at City Hall, we saw one minister coming up to say that this one used City Hall money to pay for the other one's school fees. I mean, there is a lot that happens when it gets to corruption. But now, of course, we know National Unity Platform accused their deputy president in Buganda region of corruption. And now we want to understand what corruption is in a sense, because later I realized this money was budgeted for, so that there were budgets that were passed and all MPs were in and they passed the budgets, and then when this money is given to someone, then that is corruption. Then before you know, someone is accusing the other leader of corruption. I mean, we want to understand the real thing of corruption. The president has made a lot of outcry, or of recent, wherever he stands, he talks about corruption. He preaches against corruption. Now, we want to understand what is this corruption really. With us is Christine Birinjiro from the Anti-Corruption Coalition of Uganda, and she's going to take us through today's discussion. Christine, it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you for hosting me, and good morning to our viewers out there.
How is the Anti-Corruption Coalition?
Well, the Anti-Corruption Coalition is okay. We are actually still strong, trying to advocate against corruption, and most importantly, raising awareness, but also making sure that we generate that force that engages government on matters of corruption.
Okay.
Yes.
You're talking about engaging, but a viewer out there, and I mean, we are confused now, because the direction this thing we call corruption has taken has now confused most of us, in a sense. And as Anti-Corruption Coalition, what is corruption?
Yeah, so as Anti-Corruption Coalition, we believe that corruption is dishonest dealings. Corruption is also the misuse of power and resources by those entrusted to hold this power or resources on behalf of the people. And so that is corruption to us. It is quite broad, but maybe briefly also to share a brief background about Anti-Corruption Coalition. We were formed in 1999, and the reason was to provide a platform and a forum for different anti-corruption actors to come together and form that strong voice and force that would be able to engage government on matters really of corruption, of transparency and accountability. And so moving forward, our mission is to empower the citizens to be able to demand, and actively so, transparency and accountability, not only from the public sector, but also from the private sector, because we believe this cuts across. We work with quite a number of people. We have presence countrywide. We work through and with anti-corruption coalitions at the regional level. And this is in all the regions of the country. We have over 16 regional anti-corruption coalitions. We have Rwenzori Anti-Corruption Coalition. We have one in Karamoja. We have one in West Nile, in Kigezi, and basically in Busoga. All the regions, we have coalitions. But also these coalitions at the regional level have membership. They have groups and community-based organizations, which we usually call CBOs, that are then able to engage on issues of accountability, transparency at the different levels. So that is how we engage with local governments or at the subnational level. But at the national level, we work with like-minded civil society organizations, especially working on issues of accountability. We also partner and collaborate with government institutions specifically those that are accountability related, especially the Auditor General's Office, the Inspectorate of Government, Parliament, and then of course the media is like our greatest ally, because we believe with the media we are able to have that reach that is wide, and our work basically revolves around capacity building. We make sure we empower, we strengthen the capacity of citizens to be able to engage with government. And there's quite a lot when you unpack the capacity building, like we shall see later. But we also do a lot of research, which informs our advocacy, because we know for you to have meaningful advocacy and to influence and shape policies, shape the agenda, you need to have evidence to do that. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically what we do.
Thank you so much. And like you talked about capacity building, this is now the problem I have. I don't know how you engage the public. I don't know how you sensitize the public. But of late, you've realized that the fight that had good intentions later became political. For instance, there are exhibitions we've had, that corruption exhibition, parliamentary exhibition, and at the back of this hall, instead of maybe unveiling the corruption, it now turns into a political battle, because when you read the comments, you realize that people are now having political fights. Have you also engaged into politics, that if this leader, especially if they are maybe in the ruling government or in the opposition, but if you hear anything about them, go to the exhibition, and is that the kind of capacity building and and sensitization, so that these people on social media can humiliate leaders?
Well, I must mention and underline that as an organization, as an NGO, Anti-Corruption Coalition is apolitical. Okay. We are non-political. We do not take, political sides. So we are apolitical. So, and our work does not revolve around politics. Our work basically revolves around service delivery, transparency and accountability. It does not matter whether you are a political figure, whether you're, a technical lead, a person, or so. We do not take. We do not have. We are not affiliated, if I should say, to any political maybe party or side or position. However, we know and we are aware that the work we do is greatly influenced by politics, by the happenings of the politicians. Yeah, but we always try to, keep our focus and make sure that our aim is achieved, and that is to make sure that we fight corruption, because, like I mentioned, it's there both in the public and private sectors. Even in the political arena, it is there. There is a lot of corruption as well. So we always stay focused. And the capacity building is not for people to go out and belong to a certain political party, no. The capacity building we do is basically to ensure that, one, citizens are aware, first and foremost, of the services that they are entitled to, the rights that they are entitled to, and then engage. But also, how will they engage? We train them on how to monitor some of these services or the government programs, and then we also train them on how to generate the findings from their monitoring, but also engage their duty bearers. Which duty bearer to engage in the event of, services that are going wrong in specific sectors or programs. So that is the capacity building. We give them, how do you communicate, for example, your results to a duty bearer. Some of these engagements we have in the past, even today, we see some engagements that are confrontational, but we know that any individual, let alone duty bearers or our leaders, when you try to confront them, you might not be very successful. So we try to show them, how do you do lobby? How do you lobby for the change that you want to see? How do you advocate for that change?
2026 is almost here, and the only thing we know in 2026 are the elections. They are soon, but the political environment is already set. When you go in places, actually even here in the city center, but also in the villages, you realize that the atmosphere is so tense. People are doing this and that and that. You realize that people have already started buying off voters by a lot of things, giving them t-shirts in the name of donating, giving these seedlings and whatnot. And I personally think that this is a way of corrupting their minds to vote for you even when you're not their leader. Now, if we are looking at corruption, besides the monetary corruption, this is also corruption of the mind, so that someone has no option but to vote for you, and this has already started, and you're so silent about this.
But the elections that we engage in, one, and the leaders, we engage in elections and we bring leaders into office, but the kinds of leaders that we bring reflect what is in our societies. If a leader will give you seedlings, they'll give you a packet of salt and etc. And then you will
there is someone I saw with salt with their photo and the name somewhere down. I was like, okay.
Yes. So if someone is able to earn your vote just by doing that, not by convincing you that they are capable, then you can only imagine what they will deliver as leaders.
No, people are disillusioned, so they are left with no option other than this.
No, but it is just like we talk about corruption. It has reached levels that are, endemic. We seem, as a society, indeed, the people have decided to become apathetic. There's nothing much they can do about it, and that is wrong. You should always, because if we decide to sit back and resign ourselves to this, situation, then that means we are doing a disservice to the future generations. The kind of leaders and indeed our society is one that, are leaders that glorifies the corrupt. It glorifies corruption. The leaders that we have, someone once told me, they are leaders that are after the next general election, They want to win the next general election, but they do not want to, make wins and gains for the next generation. So we need to sit back. We reflect as citizens. We cannot just resign and give up. We must engage in this fight against corruption, and we can only start at a point. There's always, that first step. Even with a journey of 1,000, miles, you always take that first step. So I think corruption is too rife in this country, but there is always a starting point. We can always start if you were able as a citizen to say no to that leader who is bribing you, because that is the leader who will then get into office and they are giving themselves billions of shillings in rewards. Parliamentary commissioners, they are the leaders who will get into, office, and before you know it, all the resources, they are eating up the roads, the health centers, and etc. And so if we do not engage these people at this level, if we do not engage the leaders, then we are throwing out our society. But most importantly, we are the level of public services or the quality is going to continue to degenerate.
Well, I'll cite out this example because it made rounds and it was published all over in the news about a certain teacher in Rakai district who says that the district service commission advertised for a job think of an agriculture something office or what. Then the daughter applied, and when the daughter applies, they requested for money from him, but it's not only him who gave in the money. There were other bidders, if I can say. There were other bidders, and the job was given to the highest bidder. So one morning he wakes up, he ties a mattress on his bike, goes to the district and says, I'm camping here until when you give me the job you promised my daughter. I'm not living here. You enter, go to your homes, I'll sleep here, you'll find me the following day. I saw the police and together the RDC arresting the chairperson of the District Service Commission. But from 1999, when the Anti-Corruption Coalition was established, up to today, we don't see any decrease, any decline in the cases of corruption. It is only changing shape. Only changing shape. That the other time people are doing this, now they are doing this, but still under the umbrella of corruption. Are you pleased with this, that even in your existence, even with your efforts, the rate of corruption is just at the rise?
So you see, just like in any society, even let's just take an example of any society, even our country. As you embark on that development path, as the country, as the society begins to develop, there are some things, there will be both good, positive, and negative, things that will happen. For example, the rate of crime will increase, but that does not mean that development is not happening. Okay. But just to answer your question, there has been a lot that has happened as a result of our advocacy since 1999. Only that it is possible that because of the advocacy, because of the awareness and etc., then the corruption has been brought to the fore. That so many cases of corruption have been exposed. It is also possible. But we also see that of late, not of late, but increasingly we see corruption taking root. It has taken root, really. If we have the NRM government in power now, but if we are to compare now and when they just joined power, then of course we see that corruption indeed has evolved, has become more systemic, is endemic. It has now brought the private sector, the different, agencies of government at all levels, subnational, national level. It is all, like one huge problem that we are faced with. And unfortunately, I always say if civil society or if anti-corruption actors were able to replace government, because unfortunately of our mandate is that we can only watch and advocate and empower. We advocate, but we cannot replace government. We can only put them on the spot to explain, to do some things, and so it is usually upon government to either take or disregard the advice that we give them. But we have seen government take on quite a number of our recommendations, right from the Whistleblowers Act, the Whistleblowers Protection. We have the Access to Information Act. All some of these efforts were accredited, or let me say contribution, because I do not want to attribute everything to us. That is not realistic. But because of this push and the constant forces, then government does put in place some of these things. And so, like I said, our advocacy does not have to be confrontational. If we bring something positive to table, and then government sometimes takes on some of these things. But we also see some of our recommendations that have not been taken on by government, especially in prosecuting cases involving grand theft. and grand corruption, we see that there's a lot of, selectiveness in the prosecution of corruption cases. Nonetheless, we shall continue because there's that hope that we have because we've seen some of our recommendations taken on, and so we shall continue to engage government, to engage the different institutions, especially the Inspectorate of Government, the ODPP, Directorate of Public Prosecution, among others, to ensure that at least we continue to make a change.
Okay. Later, we shall look at the role of citizens in the fight against graft. But today, it has also come to be realized that whoever wants to join politics, they hide in the fight against corruption. I'll give an example. The former Deputy RDC of RCC of Rubaga first came out, and we were all like, okay, wow. He has come out to speak against corruption, to speak against misuse of the taxpayers' money, only to see of recent, my family has endorsed me to join active politics. And he's not the first person. Very many other people come as activists trying to unfold corruption cases and what you see what happened in the parliamentary exhibition. And when you realize most of the people who were at the front are people who are eyeing some seat somewhere because they wanted to pick up public sympathy. Is this what should be the end of this fight?
Well, it is sad. It is unfortunate that, like you rightly say, we have seen people, those who want positions of power, they come into politics. And when they go through, it is definitely, it's like a ticket to be corrupt, and it goes back to how you're coming in. If your people vote you in, you come in and you're corrupt, you get money, because we've had leaders, I don't want to mention names, come out and say, at least forgive them. They are taking the loot to their people and they are eating with their communities, But at the heart of this is corruption.
And some other leaders says that as long as they steal and develop
they steal and invest within the country. When in the 1990s, 95s and before, we saw corruption was there in Uganda, but it was not yet grand. It was not to a large scale. It was what we would call corruption of need, It was petty, And later we saw it evolve after that was during privatization, when government was divesting itself of some of these of some of these assets, And so people, especially those who knew they were going to lose their jobs, to be laid off because government was resizing, they would just move with whatever they can. If you had a vehicle, you just go with it. If there's some money, and you just go with it. And government at that time, instead of acting, kind of felt sorry for them. They said, after all, the compensation might even come late, Compensation will come late, we are laying them off, so let them just be. After all, these are small assets. But when that was not punished, later we saw now even huge sums of money involved, but also high-level officials, ministers actually, now engage in corruption.
Let's take a short commercial break. When we return, we are going to continue with that good example.
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives. This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives. Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury.
At the political will in the fight against corruption. Of course, we admit that a lot of initiatives have been put in place, as we shall see later, but what is the real problem? Who is failing who? But before we get into that, there is something you were still talking about, and I cut you short because we had to rest a bit. And let us pick it up from there.
Yeah, so we were now looking at the corruption that had evolved from the petty and now growing into the grand corruption. So after the 1990s, we saw the government officials, ministers also engage in grand corruption, really, you know. We have quite a number of examples: the Valley Dams saga, the junk helicopters, the Chogam, you know, and this involved this, if we should call them big fish, you know, and it was hard to prosecute them, you know, moving forward. And we had, our institutions are all in place. We have IGs, quite a number of inspector generals of government who complained, especially that some of these officials would hide behind the president's name whenever the IG would go to pick them up. And so somehow they evaded prosecution. And so we moved on, and increasingly we see the president coming out. Well, his actions are not reflective of a fight against corruption. You have rightly said that leave the corrupt, don't go slow on them, do not audit them, because at least they invest their loot here in the country. But also we have seen him coming out and defending some of the corrupt, you know. I usually refer to the case of Honorable Mukula when he had been convicted by High Court, and then the president says, no, he gave him 100 million to appeal. And so that speaks quite a lot in as far as political will to fight corruption, but also in as far as the doctrine of separation of powers, the independence of these institutions that are in place to fight corruption. And so we see the political will to fight corruption is really lacking, because what is political will, you might ask? This is a combination of things. One, the laws and policies to fight against corruption, and those ones we are okay, we are quite comfortable. And then the institutions to implement these laws and policies, yes, we do have them, quite a number, but the final ingredient which seems to be missing is the implementation, you know, of these laws and by these institutions. So the institutions have failed to effectively implement the laws. They cannot prosecute all the corrupt across the board. And so that is where we are losing it. That is where we do not see the political will to fight corruption. And even then, of late, recently, we see the president coming out and declaring war against corruption. He says he's now resolute and he's going to fight corruption. He comes out and, you know, most recently with the dismissals at KCCA. But I do not think that's the proper way to fight corruption.
I was following Mr. Luyimbazi, Engineer Luyimbazi, who was the deputy ED, saying that we are only punished for doing our work and someone else neglected theirs. Because they say we wrote all these recommendations and reports and the problem was funding.
Yes, rightly so. That is what I was going to share with you, because it is on record that, of course, environmental assessments were done. They were shared with the KCCA, and then actually there's one of the reports, one of the annual reports, I think quarterly reports by the Ministry of Finance. This is also quoted that. There's need to to rescue Chitezi, but that is all, So the problem, I think, in my view, is that the finances were not provided to enable this office or these officials to do their work, and I do not think the new executive director and officials that will be put in place, I do not see any magic that they will bring or any effectiveness that they will have if the problem or the challenge of funding still persists. And so when you put someone in office, it is only fair that you give them the tools to enable them carry out and implement their mandate. In the absence of these tools, then you're not going to be able to be effective. And so as we fight corruption, it is my prayer and hope that we accord, we do not just pick out people and use them as for lack of a better word, as a sacrifice to show that we are working, to try and show the population that we are working. Because the fight against corruption is not just parading people and showing that I have removed this one from office, this one has eaten so much money, and so let's fire them and then we replace them. No, ultimately the citizen is interested in seeing, so what are we benefiting when you're going to deal with the corrupt? How does it trickle down to me? So ultimately you want to see if there's someone who has maybe embezzled funds. Let's talk about funds for Mabati, because that was also, if it was the Mabati that was stolen, yes, if you prosecute, like we did not see that happen, but if there are people you have prosecuted for stealing the iron sheets and etc., so how are those communities which were supposed to get the iron sheets, how then are they compensated? So it is about recovering what has been stolen and then putting it back to its rightful purpose.
So meaning these iron sheets that were brought back should be still taken back to Karamoja?
Yes, if that was the intention, then the people, the beneficiaries, should ideally benefit again. But we see that the IG, of course, the institution, or better still, the Inspector General of Government herself, came out and told us how we lose about 9.7 trillion. It could be 10 trillion annually to corruption. But when you look at recoveries made by all the institutions charged with recovery, it's about 300 billion annually. That is not even 1% of what we lose. So how are these victims going to benefit? And so that is how much corruption is affecting our society. That is how much corruption is affecting our country. And we need to see the president come out and act, not by creating parallel units, like the URA unit, like the anti-corruption State House anti-corruption unit. No, we need to see these institutions that fight corruption strengthened, and one way of strengthening them is giving them the resources. Most of them are underfunded, by the way. That is one of their biggest problems. But now, instead of giving them the funding, if we see you now create other units and spend even more money in there, then we question the fact that you're willing and able to fight corruption. Yeah.
Now, let us look at the role of citizens, because even if the president does all this, they are funded to the fullness, and all is done. As long as the citizens don't know their role in all this fight, I think it will still persist. Let us talk about the role of the citizens. As me, mwananchi, what is my role in the fight against corruption? Or I should sit back and wait for president to enforce?
Yeah, so we see one of the biggest hurdles and challenges as we fight corruption is ensuring that the citizens are engaged fully in this fight against corruption, but also, more importantly, that we change the mindset. You know, our citizens in Uganda now, the mindset has completely shifted, and we talked about earlier that they glorify the corrupt.
Yes.
When your political leader comes and they are campaigning, they come with their manifesto written down. This and this is what I'm promising, this is what I'll do, and this is... So
someone
the citizens will
say...
Exactly. They'll say, so what? You're speaking on Malusu, like, what do you have? Speak, something like that. So we see citizens have also played an active role in encouraging corruption. But we need to change that mindset. We need to change that mindset right from the grassroots, but also from the family. We see that our children, the future generation, have also been corrupted. Their minds and the upbringing is changing and shifting towards corruption in schools. We all know that there are campaigns in schools, and they give money, they give sweets, to buy votes. So at that level, we need to make sure that we fight corruption. What we have done as Anti-Corruption Coalition, some of our programs target youth, and youth in school, but also youth out of school. We encourage them. We want to build that moral fabric in society. We teach them about integrity, about programs that are in place, what they are entitled to, their rights, how to monitor and how to engage at the various levels of government. But we need to see citizens. We know and appreciate that because of the inequities in this society, in this country, where you have those that have getting even more, and they are not punished through corrupt means, of course, and then the small fish being caught. And so citizens have laid back, they try to riot, they are intercepted, they are arrested and thrown in jail. I was reading somewhere today, and it said that the prisons in Uganda are full, not because of the corrupt, but because of those who are protesting and trying to fight corruption. And so it is understandable that such a state of things would push a citizen to just, lay back, mind about their safety, and then let things move. After all, maybe things will pass. But that's not what it should be. It is the responsibility, after all, and the obligation and the duty of every citizen to make sure that they engage in their development at all levels. And so you begin by monitoring the services that are brought to you, because trust me, when the corrupt see that there is someone who is watching, they will not steal as much as they would if there's no one watching. So there will be effort, we encourage citizens to always monitor. Information is available most of the times. For example, we have the budget website by the Ministry of Finance, and some of this information is posted on this website in as far as resourcing of the budget is concerned, and the different, by parish, by sub-county, by district, all this information is available. But also we have civil society organizations, we have NGOs, development partners, even government themselves. They always publish the resources that have been given out for different priorities and needs. And so the starting point would be for a citizen to just develop that interest, monitor this school. And funny enough, citizens have got that mentality of, I have to be paid for me to do something, You ask someone, you have to monitor this school, and they ask you, how much am I going to be given in transport, One of the challenges that the parish chiefs and at the sub-county, that they note as they invite the general public to participate, to bring their priorities and needs for the following financial year budget, is that when they call for these meetings, then the population is asking them, so what are you giving us? How much transport? How much are you giving us? Snacks, water, But you forget that this is for the good of your community. If the health facility is functioning and it has medicines, then if your child gets sick, or if you get sick, you'll benefit. But if they are not, then you'll go there, you'll not find anyone, you'll not find the medicines. That's when they'll tell you to go and buy them from somewhere else. And God forbid, we have seen people lose lives in the process. And so we need to see the nexus between an active citizenry that engages in their development at the different levels, and on the side of government providing the services. We need to see the citizens give that push, because if we do not give that push as citizens, then government will not respond. Already when we push, the response is usually slow, but we need to see ourselves push even more, because ultimately the citizen is the one who will lose. You're the one who pays the tax, The money that is swindled by these corrupt officials and the public generally, it does not come from Mars or Venus or wherever. It comes from Uganda, and it comes from you and me as the taxpayers. And when it doesn't come from us, the country has to go and borrow, for example, to finance the 72 now trillion budget, which we are running. But trust me, this 72 does not come from the pockets of parliamentarians or your ministers. You're paying this 72 trillion shillings. But also, that means, according to the World Bank, that each of us as citizens is indebted to the tune of 2.5? Yes, 2.5. Every year. And so that should, that should invigorate us to rise up and go out there and try to, engage in our development. Hold accountable some of these leaders, because if the budget is short, by URA, for example, they are supposed to collect 32 trillion. But of this 32 trillion, no coin from the 32 trillion is going to health, to education. It will first go to paying debt. So we are going to first pay debt. So for as long as we do not make sure that we monitor and follow up on these services and the duty bearers to make sure that they use the resources for the right purpose, then when they swindle, because we are not recovering again, because we are not recovering enough, that means we shall continue to pay. So even when they are incarcerated, for those that are incarcerated or those that get away with it, we do not see the community benefiting still, because if you're corrupt and you go away with your proceeds, which is, by the way, the biggest motivation for the corrupt, it is if I steal this 20 billion, even if they arrest me, I'll come out after even if 10 years, but the money will still be there waiting for me. So if we are to remove this, to disincentivize some of these corrupt, then they'll have everything to lose and no reason to engage in corruption.
Okay.
Yes, so that is why, again, we have been pushing for an asset recovery law, a law on asset recovery. Yeah, we see the proceeds of crime is still pending. It is still a bill, but we are hoping that it will be passed into law, and then we recover these proceeds properly from the corrupt.
How far has it reached?
It is still in Parliament. It is a bill, and the only thing we can do is advocate. Like I said, if we had the powers, with some of these things would not even wait. We would pass the proceeds of crime bill. That would be top on our agenda, but would also ensure that we have a Witness Protection Act, because we have increasingly seen people fear to come out and testify against the corrupt because they are, they are influential. They can always they can even make you disappear in courts. Okay. And so if we know that there is protection for a witness, then it is easier to prosecute some of these big shots.
One of the challenges I see that bill is facing, the asset recovery bill, is that you're hunting the hunters.
Exactly.
So you want the hunter to be hunted.
Yeah, so those are some of the challenges that we encounter as we try to engage in this fight against corruption. But no fight has ever been easy. It can never be smooth sailing all the way. We only hope and know that we will be able to rid this country of corruption. While we know there is so much corruption, we can even just say all public officials or all officials are corrupt, but there are a few good men and women in this country who are patriotic, who are not corrupt, and who should be recognized really and encouraged to continue the fight against corruption.
Thank you so much, Christine. In a minute, what would be your closing remarks?
My closing remarks are two. One, political will. We need to see the political will in the fight against corruption, right from the head of state. We know and we appreciate that the head of state says he's coming out tough against corruption and against the corrupt, but we realize that he's talking tough and promising to act tough on the corrupt. We urge him to do this across board. When he knows there's a racket, there's corruption in Ministry of Finance, URA and Parliament, let him break that racket. We pray that he goes out after that racket and stops, picking out people to use as examples. But also, most importantly, I would want to speak to the citizens, to the viewer who is watching out there. The fight against corruption begins with you, it begins with us. And so for you to stop corruption, you do not have to first, point at someone else. As you're pointing at someone else with one finger, the rest, how many are they? They are 4 or 5. They point at you. So the fight against corruption begins with us. Let us be active. Let us come out and monitor. Let us hold our duty bearers to account. After all, we create the society that governs us. So let us bring out the leaders. Let us shape the leaders that we want in future for God and my country.
Thank you so much, Christine, and thank you so much to you, our viewer. Wow, it's such a self-check moment, especially when it gets to corruption. Before you accuse anyone else, what about you? Bishop Onesimus last time was giving us a short story of a child sent home for a textbook, but from the head teacher to the teacher to the child to the mother to the father, they all end up adding in some amount. So this is all corruption, and until when we start from the ground level, family level, sort it out, and then we shall see miracles up where we think it has not been well handled. Edwin Austin Mkalas is my name. I've worked with Jonah Jal and very many other people, Jacqueline and others. And from the entire team, we wish you the best of the rest of your day.
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.